you ask people for their personal happiness recipe, what do they say?
Well, this was the biggest shocker to me when we would ask people, such as yourself, to tell us, this is the formula. It's going to be about wisdom and wonderful food. We want some ingredients of your personal happiness recipe. And I'd say about 80%, Gail, would say, I've never thought about that. Or, I'll have to think about that. So the fact that we could not immediately call to mind, the majority of people that we talked to had to think about what their recipe was, let us know that it's not top of mind. And if it's not top of mind, how are we going to know if we're there or not? And I think we give happiness a bad rap in that we think we're not there. And then once people start to look at their personal recipe, they realize, you know what? I've got a lot of happiness going on.
Well, I'm glad to hear that final statement, because I was afraid you were going to say that's why people are so unhappy, is because they don't have a personal happiness recipe. But it's good to know that they do find one. But it is interesting because people ask me all the time, why are you always so happy? And my comment is, what's the choice? You're either happy or you're sad. And if you ask what makes me happy, it's definitely my pets. It's definitely what I do all day, every day. And it's definitely, how I live and where I live. I mean, all of that has to do with my personal happiness. But what is your own personal happiness recipe?
Well, I love that you said that, and I remember that from our interview. Man, those pets were number one right up there. And then you're passionate about what you do, and you're so vibrant and just running around living life. You've got the personal happiness recipe, and mine is different but similar. I mean, I looked at it this way, and I thought number one for me was freedom, and I had to think, wow, where did that come from and how? And again, if I go back to that timeline of my life, I can pinpoint jobs where I was miserable because I was in cubicle nation, or I was tethered to a phone or a something. And once I understood that freedom was important, oh my gosh, it makes such sense. Look at what I do now. Run around all over the nation and speak to people. And then the excitement is number two. Excitement. I bore easily. So it's got to be exciting and creating and new. And when I looked at that, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm always creating a new product or program or something. So that plays right in there. And then
I think you're riding your Harley would be part of that, wouldn't it?
That last one is adventure. Top three is adventure. Well, look at what I do. I ride a Harley. Guess what? That hits all three of them. Freedom, excitement, and adventure. And it's like the tagline says, if we have to explain it, you wouldn't understand. So it's a spiritual thing for me to be out on that bike and just to be free.
Well, now, did you have to take lessons to ride a Harley, or did it just come naturally to you?
Oh, good Lord, yes. I was one of those forbidden to be on a bike.
And why? Why is that?
Why?
Yeah, why?
My mom and dad, oh my gosh. My uncle plopped me on the back of a Triumph when I was about 11 years old, and I was hooked. Oh my gosh. And of course, my first boyfriend had a Harley. I had a Honda 750, and I was forbidden to be on it. Well, Mom, I'm going to go down to Susie's. I'll see you later, around the corner, and jumped on the back of that bike, and away I went. So I was forbidden. Well, then flash forward 50-something years, life changed, do-over. I moved to Phoenix. One of my girlfriends says, June got divorced, moved to Phoenix, and bought a Harley. And that's pretty much what I did.
You went through a midlife crisis.
I had midlife knowing. That's what I call it. Midlife knowing. But yes, it took 3 instructors. I dropped it 6 times within the first 3 months. Dang near killed myself. And it took the 3rd instructor to figure out what I was doing wrong. So I learned to ride late in life, and that's been 10 years ago. So
That's wonderful. And of course, there's that new comedy out with Melissa McCarthy. I don't think she's riding a Harley, but some of the scenes I've seen on her with her on the bike that she does ride are hysterical. But I'm looking forward to watching that movie. So, what have you learned, June, by gathering all of these different happiness recipes? I mean, there must be a life lesson in there somewhere.
You know, what I've learned is everybody wants to be happy, and they what I've learned is oftentimes we're not giving it the due that it deserves. I'm doing a workshop now around happiness. It's called Sustaining Happiness. What's your happiness recipe? And I just did this in Utah with about 150 or 60, I don't know. It was standing room only. They had to close the session. It was crazy. And one of the things I asked them to do is what I just did. Identify your top three. If you can tell me your top three, I can tell you whether you're happy or not, if you will let me know what percentage of that you are experiencing it. And that was the big aha and the big takeaway. And I had people come up afterwards saying, I didn't realize that I've got to start dancing again, or I've got to start doing art again, or I've got to. And one guy came up and he said, my wife's been telling me that I am unhappy, and I just got it today that she's right. So it's that really helping them to get the awareness that it's up to them to, number one, identify it, know what it is, and then number two, to spend some quality time making it happen.
Now, let me ask you, what kind of a program was this? I mean, where did you do it? I mean, I know it was in Utah, but what kind of company?
You know what? This was for the Troubled Youth Conference. Anybody that has anything to do with helping our youth that are in trouble. And they found me. One of the gentlemen that was a member of that group heard me speak to about 1,000 high school counselors the year before. So he really fought and went after me to do a breakout session and be their closing plenary speaker. And I was very, very touched by, oh my gosh, these people, if anybody needs accolades and love and thank you for doing what you do. I mean, imagine taking on kids that are they're just in a bad place. And
wow,
patients,
that's fantastic.
Well, they loved this program and what I did, because my question is, do you know what comedic style your troubled youth are? Do you know if yours is opposite? Is it fighting that? Do you know what makes them happy? So I'm doing now what I call humor and happiness audits, and it's getting people to understand those two things and then how they can change it. So they were very excited about taking that back. Of course, I gave them permission to use it, said just plug me every now and then, but, use this stuff.
Well, I think that's terrific, because that's a perfect place for people to have the personal happiness recipe. I mean, that is just a perfect place. So now let's talk about how people can reach June, because you heard that she's been used as a humor coach. So you can hire her if you feel that your conversations are dull and lackluster, or you feel your company is dull and lacks luster, or you think that your friends are dull and lackluster. You can hire June to come in. You can certainly listen to her on her radio show, The Happiness Factor, a host of Happiness Recipe Radio, Happiness Recipe, and so you can get her there. So how can people get you?
Well, it's real easy. It's JuneCline.com, and that's Cline with a C, C-L-I-N-E. So JuneCline.com is my website, which is always under construction. You know how that goes. And then the happinessrecipe.net. People can download it. We post a new show every Friday, and they're wonderful. And gosh, we've got, I think, 100 now, so you can go back and get happy all the time. And then June at June Cline would be my email. Just email me, and if there's something I can help you or your team, association, company do around humor and happiness, I am so there for you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, June, for being with us today, and thank everybody for listening to Living Regret Free, the show that gives you skills and techniques on how to live a better and more peaceful life. Connect with me on Facebook and Twitter. Be sure to download my free ebook, Life Lessons from an SOB, on my website, spunkyoldbroad.com, where you can also learn about my speeches, coaching, and resources. And you can reach me at Gayle, Gayle Carson 13 at gmail.com. And I've got these SOB clubs now around the country, so if any of you are interested in joining one in your area, just let me know. Thanks for listening, and June, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.